Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary. This is your AEW recap. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. This program was supposed to be yesterday, and quite frankly, I actually started. It was great. And then my dog, who was in the room, threw up. And so I decided to deal with that. And then by the time it was all cleaned up and everything like that, it was too late in the night. So thought, let's just get this thing out there today. There is going to be a lot of content on this channel in the next little while, so just brace yourselves for that. But let's begin here where the show kind of all began. They did have a pre-show. Admittedly, I didn't watch a ton. It's great that Jamie Hayter is back. I think that really kind of livens things up in this women's division a little bit. And I think, again, you saw on this card, the lack of commitment sounds very harsh, but the lack of stories that they've had in the women's division, and I don't believe it is because of a lack of talent. I'm not looking at this women's division and Jamie Hayter comes in as, oh, thank God, there's 5 women now. That's simply not the case. But I do think that this is another really talented human being that they're going to have. And it's great that she had her Wembley moment after not being able to have it last year, and then obviously not being able to be there for the buildup of it for this year. So that was kind of the big one there. But now we get into the London ladder match. This was the crazy car crash that you would expect for the AEW Trios Championship. And I feel like a lot of times with these, you get it's one of those matches where it's like, you know what? Everyone who was in this gets elevated coming out of it. And I didn't feel that with this one. Like, you remember back when they had the casino ladder match, right? Where they were fighting for a casino chip. And there was Hobbs, Wardlow, and Jeff Cobb were all in that match. And it was like, man, these guys, like all of these guys feel like they're elevated coming out of this. I didn't really get that in this one. That this was just a bit of a car crash, and it was just there were so many people involved that I thought it was really difficult to stand out. One guy who did was Nick Wayne. He had a couple of really cool spots where he hit the cutter on Brody through the table on the floor, and then he hit that destroyer where he dove through to kind of a suicide dive, caught Malachi Black, and did a destroyer down through the table. So I thought he had some standout moments. Everyone worked hard and everyone put in a lot into this match, and so it was a fun match for sure. But like coming out of it and coming out of the show, there isn't a whole lot that I recall from this one necessarily. Oh, another spot. Juice gets the chair up and blocks the hairspray thing. I mean, he is such an entertaining character and just person, it seems like. And so it's he fits in this stuff really well. And I'm still not there with the Bang Bang Gang or anything like that, but Juice Robinson will always have a special place in my heart. But I do think that it was, like I said, it was a little bit difficult to get everyone to kind of stand out. You had I thought some interesting storytelling with Kill Switch, and like, oh, he could go for it, but Christian wants it, so Christian's gonna go for it, and all of those things. So that was that was kind of interesting. And then at the end, you have Christian climbing up, Pat kicks him off, and I thought the finish was a little anticlimactic, and I find that with a lot of ladder matches, honestly. Like, there's so many big crash bang boom whatever, and then the end is just like, oh, he punched him and it's off and it's over. And so I do find, like, sometimes I think that's a me thing, that I just expect too much from all of these, where you see all these crazy things, and like in a traditional match, when you see all these crazy spots, it's then in theory one big thing that just kind of finishes the match. And so that's the 1, 2, 3, and it's building to this giant crescendo, right? Ladder matches don't necessarily do that. You get all the crazy shit, and then at the end it's just kind of well, it's over now. It was still fun, it was still great, and honestly, Pac getting his Wembley moment, which they are really trying to get over, I thought was really cool. And he's such an incredible talent, and I think now these are 3 performers in Pac, Wheeler Yuta, and Claudio. This is going to be a really fun group, and I hope that there's a little bit more relevancy to these titles, because I do think that it is an interesting division that you can have a lot of fun with. I just feel like it's gone a little bit more the comedic route, and maybe not so serious in the last little while. So I am happy to see that these guys get the belts. After the Let me see. Sorry, I had after the. I'm thinking of something different. But no, I think this is going to be fun for them. Anyway, speaking of not really ending with a flourish, let's go on to match number 2. It was for the women's championship. It was Mariah May against Toni Storm, and this was when I kind of felt like I was being maybe a little bit more critical than I needed to be. Maybe I've listened to one too many Eric Bischoff podcasts because I thought like the story coming in was good. I thought it was really good. Like I talked about it on the preview. It started with that heated moment with the attack with the shoe and it's bloody and all of that, and that was kind of a carrying force throughout this whole thing. But then I did think that like I thought it was weird coming into this where you have all of these different things. Toni Storm asking Mariah May, "Are you prepared to die?" And then we get to the match, and she's afraid to pull the trigger on it. And so it just felt like it had built up into this blood feud, and it's like, oh, but she still loves her. It's like I didn't feel that portrayed at any point in the build up to it, really. Like it was heartbroken for sure. But I didn't get the like I'm not going to be able to pull the trigger on this type of a situation. And so that's why I thought it was a little bit weird that it didn't really mesh with me with the whole story. Again, this match was very good, and I know I'm being overly critical on some things, but that was just something that kind of stood out to me. Nigel on commentary is amazing during these Toni Storm matches, where he said maybe Toni Storm is going to go the way of polio. I thought like just, and then like he gets the kiss from Mariah May and just loses it. Mariah May slapping her mom was just out of nowhere and crazy. It was just, oh my God. Just a real incredible moment there. I thought both of them, it was a good spot where they both do they both like kick each other low, and they both do the headbutt spot and they both go down, so it kind of shows like there is like, while Mariah May is a little bit on the negative side to Toni Storm right now, that there was still some mentorship there, and there was still some lessons learned from Mariah May and Toni Storm. And then you get kind of like the chance where Toni Storm has a chance with the again stabbing, feels aggressive, but has the shoe and has the chance to do it, and she can't bring herself to do it. And again, this is I know I'm being overly critical. We have that in multiple spots here in AEW. Was it a month or so ago where Hikaru Shida was facing Mercedes Moné, and the referee was down, or back was turned or whatever, and Shida had a chance to grab her kendo stick, and she's like, "Oh, should I? No, I shouldn't. Oh, no, I can't. I can't bring myself to do that." And we have the obvious Will Ospreay one that goes out the window tonight, or last night. But you have that going on, and so like there is but so many times I can do with the can I, can't I, oh, I mustn't. That being said, like this was good, and it got Mariah May into the match, and then it gets the finish, and she hits the Storm Zero for that added exclamation mark on top of it. I thought this was good. I know I am very much being overly critical of it, and certain spots of it, but it's more things to do with the broader scale of the company than it is to do with these two. I thought these two performed fantastically, and it was a great beat in this story, and I don't think it's going to be the end of the story, but I think it is an interesting note in all of it, and it gets Mariah May into the as the women's champion. Like, she has kind of reached this new level, and I think her character work has been great, and it'll be interesting to see like what she does when it's not tied with Toni Storm, what kind of character that this brings out. But this was a very, very good match. Next, it was the FTW Championship with Chris Jericho taking on Hook. It basically starts as a 3-on-1. I thought one nice little note was they do this kind of 3-on-1 attack. Jericho hits the code breaker, and Hook kicks out at 1. It didn't get the big like, oh my God, he kicked out at 1 reaction, but it was just like a nice little thing where it's like, no, it's going to take a lot to beat this kid tonight. I thought that was really cool. The cricket balls I don't think really landed. You can't really do a whole lot of moves with them. Hook hit the cricket ball at him at one point, and it seemed like it went into like the 18th row. So he just started throwing them at him. The cricket bat that said "Hi guys" I thought was nice, but overall, like the crowd was rather quiet for this whole thing. Not for Big Bill. This crowd got really into it for Big Bill, but for the most part, there wasn't just a whole lot going on with this one. And Hook just feels like someone to me who would benefit from just a lot more ring time than he has been able to get so far in AEW. Like if AEW had house shows, that would be great. If AEW, I don't want to say if AEW had a developmental, but like I just don't know if like him wrestling 1 or 2 nights a week is enough right now. I feel like he needs to be getting some real actual reps in because I think there is something there, but I still think quite green. And I don't know if a matchup with Chris Jericho highlights his skills in the way that you would think it would. Even 3 years ago, it felt a little oil and water to me, and I didn't really like it. Another spot that I was a little bit like, really? They brought out a barbed wire board and it was wrapped in barbed wire. And they threatened chokeslamming Hook through it. And so that was kind of an interesting spot. And the culmination of that one is there's a pool cue and they're gonna hit Hook and Hook ducks and they hit Big Bill instead. And Big Bill falls back and he goes through the table and the barbed wire. It's like you get the exact same reaction if he just goes through the table, right? And like the barbed wire part, you don't really need that as much. And so that just felt barbed wire for the sake of barbed wire. And we shouldn't be getting to that point. I know that we have like they lit someone on fire a couple of pay-per-views ago, and we're going to do it again tonight. So I understand that we have found new levels of violence in this company, but I don't feel like barbed wire should just be out there as just and we'll throw this in there as well. Like that should still be something that's taken seriously, in my opinion. The finish with both Taz and Hook having the Taz missions on the floor and in the ring, I thought was really cool. And it was a nice end to the feud, I think, with Taz, who has just been kind of biting his tongue the whole time. Well, not biting his tongue, but just not getting physical at all. For him to actually get involved, I think was really cool. And it was a nice moment out there at Wembley. So that was fun. Then we get the tag team title match. It's the Elite against the Acclaimed against FTR. The Scissor Me Daddy chance before the guys even come out was huge. And I think it does show that, like, yes, maybe these characters do need a bit more of an aggressive side at times. And maybe there needs to be a bit of an evolution with these characters. But overall, like, this is still something that is very over. I was wearing my Scissor Me Daddy ass shirt last night, or yesterday afternoon while watching this show. And like this is still an act that is very entertaining and very over. And so I think it's a tough balance. And it's one that WWE had a bit of trouble with the New Day. And even when Big E and Kofi are winning world titles, people are, oh, well, they're not serious enough, blah, 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 blah. Like you're always going to get the harumph, harumph, harumph. But you do have to kind of also listen to the crowd and see what these people are entertained by. And right now it is absolutely entertained by the Acclaimed. This was, I think, a very entertaining match. I thought that it was interesting. You got some CM Punk chants in this bout. Not quite as aggressive as they were later, but you got some of those, so it was a little, I think, maybe a little noteworthy. I thought that this was, like I said, it was a fun match. You get the spot where everyone gets their knees up, and that leads to oh, sorry. Everyone like there's dives off the top rope and everyone gets their knees up. I thought that was kind of a fun spot that they pulled off. There was a few in here. Caster getting in on everyone's finishes, I thought was quite fun as well. Like he hits the EVP trigger and then he hits a shatter machine. I thought that was I kind of thought that was a fun spot as well. I do really think that there was some good chemistry going on in this bout. Sorry, I'm trying to read my notes, and for some reason, of all the shows I'm going to be doing in the next week, this was the one I hand wrote everything out for, and it's not going as smoothly as maybe I would like it to. But I thought the famouser onto the belts and then the mic drop, I thought that was it. I thought, okay, the Acclaimed are getting their moment here and that they are picking up a win, that this is going to be it. But at the end, it is the EVP trigger that closes it. Really, really fun match. This was honestly like second or third favorite match on the card for me. It was great. And then after you get the grizzled young vets coming out, and then they attack FTR right away. And so it was weird because you get like this huge reaction. They get in the faces of the Young Bucks, and then they tried to do like a heel thing and go after FTR, and the crowd was kind of like, oh well, we like those guys too, and I think we're supposed to boo right now, but we don't really want to boo our guys. So it's just this weird like, oh, okay. And then they did the yeah, and everyone got excited again. But I That might have been something I would have saved for Wednesday. They get in the faces of the Bucks. The Bucks clear out, and then as Dynamite is going on, they turn on FTR there, and you get a bit of reaction. So they feel like bigger stars in the moment, and then you're able to quickly turn them. But it's cool that they're being added to this tag team mix right now. The Acclaimed don't get pinned. I would imagine that that's going to be maybe even the All Out match where the Acclaimed say like, look, we weren't beat in this thing, give us this opportunity here. I think you'll probably get something along those lines. Then it was the Casino Gauntlet, and I have to say, at first, because the it didn't seem like the commentators were clued in or anything like that. I didn't really love this format, but as it has gone on, and they've done it a few times now to really get it over, I really enjoy this. I think it's really interesting where it's like, yeah, we got 21 guys, but it could be one or two who finish it. And so like you have like, okay, it's better to get in later, but you don't want to be too late. I think that's a really fascinating way of doing it. And I think it's a tremendous kind of match structure. Okada at 2 is great. I thought one thing that could have been just a little bit better with it, I think, and maybe they'll punch this in on Wednesday, but I thought that like they made such a big deal about Orange Cassidy winning the #1 spot in this gauntlet to then send Okada out too. I think commentary at some point needed to be like, oh, this is obviously the elite kind of flexing their muscles and getting their guy in early in this bout, so he has the better opportunity at getting the win and the championship contract thing. So I feel like that was something that maybe needed to be adjusted. Nigel McGuinness comes out. It's a gigantic reaction. He looks incredible. Was it his smoothest performance? Obviously not. But again, that's being overly critical. It was an amazing moment. And just to see him in the ring with Zack Sabre Jr., and to see him in the ring with Okada and just on down the line as this went on, it was like, this is really, really cool. And just an amazing moment for him where it felt like his career, like there was no coming back from everything that he had been dealing with. And that there's a documentary about him where he is obviously a little bit frustrated with how things with his career kind of turned out. And so for him to get this Wembley Stadium moment, I hope we get him occasionally. It's a nice kind of thing to go into their bag of tricks. And I thought Taz being like, whoa, do I have to work Saturdays now? I thought that was that was a nice thing to kind of have in that spot. But also, and then Nigel against Kyle O'Reilly was really cool. Zack Sabre Jr. gets a huge reaction coming off of a G1 win. I'm behind on the G1. I wanted to do a lot more of it this year, but just summer was what the summer was. So I honestly, I had kind of avoided a bunch of spoilers. I had a pretty good idea that he had won, but then, fresh off of his G1 wins. Well, great. I'm only 2 days into it. But like just him against Nigel with some old World of Sports stuff I thought was really cool. But Zack Sabre Jr., like he has learned how to carry himself and execute things in the ring so well. He is so unique. And I mean, look, this isn't breaking news to wrestling fans who are watching us. Like, hey, by the way, Zack Sabre Jr. is good at this. But he just continues to get good. Hangman coming in with his new character was excellent. The desperation that he had and the fire that he showed was just the exact perfect thing that you needed for this moment. And so I thought he did a phenomenal job with that. Jeff Jarrett gets a monster reaction, a fun square off with him and Hangman. Hangman with the moment there with Karen Jarrett where he finally had a, no, I'm not going to do that. And just showing like maybe a sliver that there is still a good guy in there. I think was a nice touch on that he is not just simply on this blind rage path. That there is actually like some kind of moral compass somewhere in there. I thought that was a good spot. And then Ricochet comes out. It's crazy that he is as good as he is. He's still very, very, very good. It was cool to see. I heard post wrestling after talking about like, was this the spot to bring him in for? And we'll see where he ends up going. But it would have been cool if he maybe had his own moment instead of just surprising this match. But then again, one of the things you're trying to get over is this match and that anyone can come out, right? Like commentators, guy who won the G1 not too long ago, Ricochet, like guy who was last time we saw him, he was getting violently murdered in WWE. Like you get you create this thing where there's like, okay, there is surprise after like that. This is that's something that the WWE did with the Royal Rumble almost too well, because now we're expecting it every year, and if we only get 3 surprises out of 30 guys, then we're pissed that that happened. So I think that this, maybe it isn't the best long term to bring Ricochet in this way, but although if they follow it up well, then no one's going to care, and it also kind of gets over like, hey, surprises can happen in this thing. And so I think that's a good way of doing it. I thought Nigel had it at one point, and then Christian spears Nigel, and I thought that was a good moment where Nigel has been kind of big upping how good Christian Cage, and Christian doesn't care and spears him anyway. Luchasaurus comes in as Luchasaurus, and they tease that he's turning on Christian. Instead, he chokeslams Kyle O'Reilly, and Christian gets the win. This one felt a little bit underwhelming. Like, Christian is great, and he's doing some of the best work of his career, but like this was an opportunity on a big stage to get a big win for someone, I think, who needed it. And I don't think Christian needs this. And again, it'll be about the follow-up. I missed it on commentary, I guess. But I guess that this is kind of going to be like Money in the Bank, where they can cash this in at any time. So it doesn't necessarily mean he is the #1 contender necessarily. Although, given how the night ended, I think there would be some fun promo work with Christian and Bryan Danielson about Bryan being a bad father and stuff like that. Like, I think you could actually do some fun stuff with that. But I just like when you see the people who are in this match, like an Okada, like Nigel, like a Ricochet, and some of those guys, Zack Sabre Jr. It just felt like there were more intriguing options given the histories with both Swerve and with Bryan Danielson, that Christian winning it just kind of felt like a, huh, okay. And maybe it leads to like Christian trying to cash in. Edge, Adam Copeland comes out and spears him and costs him, and it leads to one final blow off of their thing. But maybe they've already had it. I don't know. But either way, that just felt like a little bit of a, oh, okay. And then we go to the American Championship, as it's MJF against Will Ospreay. These two are incredible. Like, just everything they did in this match was absolutely tremendous. The double, like, Will Ospreay hitting just some of the highlights here. Ospreay hitting the shooting star press on MJF while he's hung up on the ropes was awesome. Then he hits a double jump Oz cutter. That was really, really great. The MJF spot where he fakes the knee injury and then hits a pile driver, and now they're talking about MJF working over the neck of Ospreay. I thought that was so great. Where you have Ospreay actually like taking advantage of an injury and showing some of his killer instinct, but then showing that MJF is still ahead of him on that, and maybe that's not necessarily a strength of Ospreay's game anyway. I thought that was a really, really nice touch that they did there. Panama Sunrise on the apron is crazy. And again, just kind of put over like the working on the neck and all of that. Oz cutter on the apron, and then a hidden blade that hits the camera guy. MJF using a distraction to get a near fall with the Nux. I think, no, it wasn't the Nux. He hit him with something. Maybe it was a belt shot, and then a near fall, and then the brainbuster, a near fall. Two really, really good ones that got it going. MJF does a hidden blade. Then Ospreay hits MJF. Sorry, I know my notes are kind of all over the place. At some point, the referee is down. It was Ospreay stopped short and then gets shoved into him, right? I think I might have a mix up. Either way, referee goes down. MJF brings out the Nux and he goes to hit him, and Daniel Garcia comes back and stops him. And I thought this was a really good moment to kind of elevate Daniel Garcia. Kind of shows that Daniel Garcia maybe isn't going to WWE, but it elevates Daniel Garcia really into this realm now, and into this universe of kind of top guys, and kind of continues that. It costs MJF. Ospreay ends up hitting the hidden blade, and then you get the Tiger Driver, and he gets the win. I thought MJF was going to kick out of this, and one of the things they kept harping on the stealing of the Dynamite Diamond Ring, and in my mind I was like, you know what's going to happen, because I grew up on the Attitude Era, so I'm thinking we have 84 different run-ins that are about to come. But you're going to have, like, there's all this talk, he doesn't have the diamond ring, and he's tried a couple of these things, but he needs this, and Adam Cole comes out with the diamond ring, and that's how these two guys get back together or something. So I'm happy it wasn't as convoluted as that. And I was a little bit worried that we were going to get a kick out of the Tiger Driver. That was not the case. Ospreay gets the win with his super finisher. This match wasn't as good as the first one, but these two put on just an unbelievable wrestling match in this. It hit all the notes that I think it needed to, and recapped poorly by me, but that this was a great, great, great show. Great showing from both, and just showed why they're both. And then after, Ospreay celebrates with the new international championship, as that one gets the branding that it so richly deserves once again. But overall, this was great. And we'll talk a little bit more about bigger picture stuff on a show that's coming out a little bit later on today or tomorrow. But this was the note that needed to be hit on this one. TBS Championship now. Mercedes Moné taking on Britt Baker. Mercedes riding out with corgis was pretty cool. It was brought up, like, there was pyro, I mean, all throughout the night, and in Britt's entrance as well. And so I hope the corgis were at least sheltered from that a little bit. But it's still like a nice touch given the royal meaning of corgis out in the UK. Britt, really good counter from the top rope body slam that they had. That kind of got the crowd into it for a few moments. Overall, though, that this crowd was not feeling this match. You have the Eddie stuff with Mercedes Moné that has long been discussed, the inspiration that Eddie had on Mercedes Moné's wrestling style. And so for Britt to do the Eddie where she tosses the chair to Camille, or tosses the belt to Camille and then lays down, I thought that was a nice touch. There's like 1% of me that's like, man, we're trying to get Camille over as this badass, and now she's falling to this like silly, goofy thing, but that's being way too critical. This was a fun spot, and it kind of gets it down to a one-on-one. You get a nice quick one after this, where you hit the, like, right after that, you have Britt hit the Panama Sunrise and then the curb stomp. And so you think, like, okay, the muscle is gone. This could be the finish here. And it wasn't. And again, the crowd got into it. And then the finish comes. They're doing these kind of like rolling, trying to get this rolling pin situation going on. Oh, sorry, I missed one thing first. Sasha Banks bites down on Britt Baker's hand for the lockjaw move. I get that, like, she's a dentist, and so you want to get that, and it's an interesting one. To me, though, like, that's an obvious counter now, right? Like, but before, like, the mandible claw, it paralyzed you to some degree, right? That was kind of the explanation, and so you couldn't just bite down. And also, he had, like, at least in the beginning, before it was a sock, he had a big padded thing on it, so biting down wouldn't have mattered anyway. But with this, like, if you can just bite her. So I wonder if this is kind of the phasing out of that move, or if I'm just overthinking entirely. But then the finish comes. They're trying to roll around. There's a couple of counters, and then they've been working over Britt's back, and they were telling the story that, like, she had been out for 10 months, and part of it, like, the thing that started it was this back injury, and that led her down the path of a couple of scary health incidents that she ended up dealing with. And so the story of the whole match is the back, and then it gets to the finish where it looked to me like Mercedes is trying to whip Britt into the ropes, bounce her back on her knee for a backbreaker, and then hit whatever the finish was, and get the win. Instead, she, like, just kind of misses it, falls to the mat, and then she hits her whoop-de-doop finish for the win. And so it felt anticlimactic. It felt out of nowhere. This match, it was in a very difficult spot, but I don't know if this match gets a better reaction anywhere anyway. Like, it's just, I don't want to be one of the people who are being overly critical of the Mercedes Moné run here so far. But just very little of it has hit. Very little of it have I found intriguing. And this one was a chance to do that. These two wrestled a pretty good match, but this was kind of hyped as a dream match. And I was very excited for it. And it didn't get to that final gear that I necessarily wanted it to get to. And, like, the promos for Mercedes haven't been amazing. You kind of get the back and forth with her and Britt. The character hasn't clicked, and now the in-ring is it's just, at some point it really does feel like it's not working right now with Mercedes. But she gets the win, and on we go. On we go now to the TNT title match in a coffin match as Jack Perry takes on Darby Allin. Darby comes out with thumbtacks glued to his face. He goes flying into the coffin. He had Jack Perry set up onto it and like it stood it up, had Jack Perry against it, and then does this wild suicide dive and just like bam, crashes right into it. So an obvious crazy spot. Perry brings out the glass, of course. And then you get the Cry Me a River chants and fuck CM Punk. So the crowd was pro CM Punk for the Young Bucks and anti CM Punk for Jack Perry, and so that I thought that was really interesting. And probably I don't think there's a whole lot you can read into it, but I thought it was at least noteworthy. Anyway, after that, like he takes a backdrop onto him and then a skateboard to the back, which like I get like these guys are doing a whole lot. That's one where it's like, I don't think you can fake that. I think that just sucks. I think that probably just hurt. And so like that was just one of the things I thought of. I was like, I thought this was supposed to be fake. That looked like it probably hurt. Darby Allin again gets his hands tied where Jack Perry like tapes them all together. He still hits a coffin drop off of it, but then Perry counters with a power bomb, hits him in the head with a belt, throws him off of the stage through a table. And they were talking like, oh, it's probably 10, 12 feet in the air. And then they're like, oh, no, I think it's like 20. Either way, it was a crazy, crazy spot. And kind of sets it all up. Like you get the body bag. Darby Allin gets put into it, gets dragged into the coffin, and it's like, okay, what crazy way is he gonna have to come out of this? And they had left the head open a little bit, and so he fights with his hands tied. Because sorry, also at this point he gets his legs tied up with his own belt. And so he has his hands tied and he puts it out to stick his head on. I was like, ah. And I was like, oh my God, they're going to just like shut this thing on his head. But Perry runs in, drills him with the knee. And that is that. Sorry, I know that the camera's kind of shaking right now. My cat is sleeping on the other side and is taking this opportunity to clean and all that. So sorry. But anyway, this was a very a great way to finish this, and it gets Jack Perry across as a badass, and like he carries himself so well, and I love this character. The one thing, and I know it's very old schooly of me, God damn, this kid's small, right? Like it's one of the things that holds me back on Adam Cole. Like, oh yeah, just whatever. And like his wrestling and his character eventually just kind of took over, and it was fine. Jack Perry, I think, is going to get to that level as well. But like you see him and he does the Raven pose, and it's like, dude, you're like 150 pounds. But they're doing a great job with the character. He's a phenomenal wrestler, and we are luckily in a time where the size doesn't really matter. But it was one of those ones where it's like, boy, he is really a lot smaller than I thought he was. And maybe not that I thought he was, but then he carries himself anyway. But overall, again, great. And then after the Elite come out with a gas tank, they pour gas on Darby Allin and then on the casket, and then out comes Sting. You get a huge reaction. So obviously I have to put the Sting shirt behind there. He comes out, chases them all off. Place goes absolutely crazy. I went nuts. And I thought like, oh man, like it's probably not going to be Sting. I wonder who's going to come out because Sting was retired. But he comes out and he looks great. I hope this doesn't lead to a return match or anything like that. But this was cool. There was when the music hit, I was like, oh man, is it gonna be Sting's kids? Because I know at least one of them's training for wrestling right now. But this was a great moment here, nonetheless. And then we get to our main event for the AEW World Championship. It is Swerve Strickland against Bryan Danielson. And the video at the start, I think, was intentionally vague and I think perfect, where he is saying like he starts it with "You are my first love," and it's wrestling clips and all of these things, and it's like that. This is I am living the life I want to be as a professional wrestler. This is the only thing I've ever wanted from my entire life is just to do this. And then as it transitions into clips of his kids, he doesn't change how he is talking. And doesn't like, but now I have whatever. It is just a steady stream of consciousness the whole way. For those watching, this is Bailey. You've seen her before around here, but it never changes. The tone never changes, whatever. And so you are led to believe by the clips on the video that he is talking about his kids. But he says like, I will always choose you first. And it does have clips of the kids, but you're like, are we talking about the kids? Or are we talking about wrestling? And so I thought it was really, really, really well done in kind of this like kept along with the whole thing. Like, is he going to wrestle? Is he not going to keep wrestling? What are we going to do with this? I thought it was great. Swerve comes out black and gold. He has the heads of his victims stitch on to his outfit as well. Just absolutely fantastic. He was great. And just early, like right from the word go, these two guys get going. There's a great shot of Bryan Danielson, sorry, with his kids, and just how fired up they were about this whole thing. You have early on, Swerve hits a DVD onto the ring bell, and that ends up busting Bryan open, and he is gushing early. And then you have Swerve playing off of it with his family. Like, just every note with the family tonight was perfect. Every note of this match, honestly, was really, really perfect. Bryan eating some back suplexes that they cut to Birdie, and she is just crying and watching this whole thing. And then Bryan had a really great counter to a Swerve stomp, and that kind of gets things going with this one. Swerve, that they have an interesting spot where Swerve's in the label lock. He counters it and hits a vertebreaker, and they bring the doctors out, but then Swerve throws the doctors away, and you're kind of playing off of the like, hey, I'm going to cripple you here at All In. And again, I thought they played that beautifully. You have Bryan taking a couple of house calls, and then he looks over at his family and just says, I'm sorry, as he eats a third one. And so again, you are left with, is he saying I'm sorry because you are my child and you are watching me get just annihilated by this man? Or is he saying I'm sorry because this was the time where he could have stopped? He could have absolutely like, yeah, I took 3 house calls. I don't have it. Let's go home. I'm never going to wrestle again. And instead he chose wrestling. And so I thought, again, it was that moment where they kept you guessing with this whole thing. And I know some people are saying the retirement stip made it seem obvious that Bryan was going to win. I never felt that. I genuinely believed after he said, I'm sorry, I was like, okay, that's it. I started tearing up. So like, this is the end where we're not seeing Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson or whoever wrestle ever again. That this is going to be the retirement. I thought they did it. It was great. And then he kicks out at 2. Was that you? No, we're fine. Anyway, he's taking kicks for Swerve, and then he starts landing some kicks, and he's yelling how much he loves his family, and he's just like absolutely annihilating him. He then locks in a triangle, landing some elbows. He hits the running knee, and Swerve just brushes it off. That was so perfect. Oh, that was so good because it's building. It's okay. You've hit these 3 house calls. Bryan is kicked out, and now he's fired up. And here comes as he said on Dynamite. I get chills just thinking about it. As he said on Dynamite, I'm the best fucking wrestler in the world. Here comes the best fucking wrestler in the world, and he's gonna get it. It's kicks. He's yelling about how much he loves his family, and fuck you for making me go through this. And he's lighting into him with kick after kick after kick. And now here it comes. It is the running Busaiku knee, and this is gonna do it. And Swerve stands there, smirks, and it's just like, I'm good, man. Oh, it's art. Oh my God, that should win some kind of award for something. Oh, it was excellence. Swerve, like I said, these two brought out the absolute peak of their characters with each other. Just brilliance with all of it. All of it was amazing. Loved every second of it. And I know I was critical about AEW storytelling in all of this. These two guys, I don't know how much of it is Bryan. I don't know how much of it is Swerve. I don't know how much of it is Prince Nana. I don't know how much of it is Tony Khan. Whoever is doing this one, do more of it, because I thought it just hit every note that it absolutely had to. And then you get oh yeah, so Swerve brushes that off, and then he hits the house call, and it's another near fall. And I thought that was it. I thought, yeah, you know what? Bryan gave him everything he had, and he eats the house call, and it's over. That is just like he wants to keep going, but he just can't keep up with this new badass champion that has come into the wrestling world in Swerve Strickland. I thought that was it, but it's a near fall. At that point, Hangman comes out. He gets into it with Prince Nana. He's throwing security guards all over the place and all whoop-de-doo. The one small note I have on this is there were multiple near falls in this where I thought it was it. And now Hangman's deciding to come out. Like, if he wants to really cost Swerve, should he not have come out earlier? But again, that this is that I think that is overthinking things a little bit, and this is part of the suspending your disbelief part that you kind of just have to do with that. Hangman comes out, he distracts Swerve. Bryan then hits the running knee, and it's a long two. So he like it's still kind of building, and then Swerve gets his offense in, and he kicks him, and he's going to do like this rolling move into it, and he rolls and he dives, and it's right into another knee that lands a little bit more impactfully. He locks in the label lock, and Swerve then breaks out of it. But then Bryan, like, Swerve is like fighting his hands, and Bryan like grabs the fingers and just like, yeah, with it, and then goes for it again, and Swerve has to tap out and just chills. An incredible match, an unbelievable match. I'm happy that the Hangman distraction didn't directly lead to the pinfall. That would have been a little lame. You still get some back and forth after that, but you still establish the Hangman Swerve thing. And that was great, but it ended the way that it should have, with Bryan Danielson hoisting the AEW World Championship as still, as he said, the best fucking wrestler in the world. This match was awesome. This will be a match of the year candidate for me. It was clearly the best match of the show. I think, and if you wanted to just watch for match quality, that match was great. The tag team match I thought was really, really fun. And the MJF Ospreay one, obviously, that's kind of my podium for this particular occasion. The casino one was just kind of fun for like a bit of nostalgia and a couple of surprises as well. Overall, this was a good show. I don't think it was as good as last year's. I don't think it is even probably the best AEW pay-per-view of the world of the year when we can go back and kind of look at some of the amazing stuff that AEW has put on. This was a good show though, and I think you are set up in a few interesting directions going forward now. Does the product need to be improved? Yes, in some areas, quite frankly, vastly. But this was still, when they get it right, they get it so right. And they did it perfectly in that main event and a couple other spots this evening, or on Sunday afternoon. So that's going to do it. Like I said, there's going to be a lot more coming out here, all on wrestling and football mainly, over the next week or so, and even over the next, hopefully, 24 hours, as we get kind of caught up on some stuff. So now that this is done, the attention shifts back to WWE, as it is Bash in Berlin this weekend. So coming up here in a little bit, we are going to have just a bit more like, okay, what's next now for AEW after this? Looking at some of the bigger storylines and what we might be seeing on Dynamite. We're also going to have early storylines that we're watching, or early preview, I guess, for Bash in Berlin. We're going to have a Raw recap coming up tomorrow, and then the full Bash in Berlin show coming up on Friday. Also going to be getting into, I do this every WrestleMania, and I feel like this is now AEW's WrestleMania. And so we're going to get into booking to next All In. So that's what's coming up wrestling wise. There's a lot of fantasy football and NFL stuff on the channel as well. I've already gone too long with this out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I will talk to you a lot not too far from now. Have a great day, everybody.